Huddle Up Moms began in Southwest Virginia with the mission of empowering mothers through education, connection, and support. Through services from a diaper bank to peer support to pre- and postnatal education, HUM changes lives. The stories you're about to see were recorded at the 5 Points Music Sanctuary in Roanoke. Thanks to these brave women for being willing to share these stories.
Our last storyteller. She's an Appalachian native from Dublin, Virginia, who studied musical theater at JMU. After graduating in 2010, she moved to New York City to pursue a career on Broadway, where a nonprofit job taken to pay the bills unexpectedly became a 12-year career in fundraising with organizations including Books for Kids, Big Brothers Big Sisters of New York, Planned Parenthood, and the American Heart Association. She earned her MBA from Radford University in 2024 and is currently writing her first novel, a contemporary romance. She lives in Roanoke with her husband, Chris, their daughter, Lucy, and their 2 rescue dogs, Tuck and Rumi. Hands together, beautiful storyteller, Christie Steele Garcia.
Thank you guys so much. All the storytellers have been so amazing. This whole day has been so amazing. And I'm just honored to be here and to share with you today. There's one thing I think it's missing, though, and that's Taylor Swift. So if you'll be with me for a second. But my mama told me it's all right. You were dancing through the lightning strikes, sleepless in the onyx night. But now the sky is opalite. Oh, 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 oh. They say the chances of being struck by lightning each year is less than 1 in a million. But when I was just 72 hours postpartum, I was mere moments from being struck by lightning inside my own body, with not a cloud in the sky. Preeclampsia. In Greek, that word translates to before the lightning, derived from the word eklampsis, meaning to shine out or burst forth violently, combined with the prefix pre, meaning before. For those that aren't familiar, you probably got very familiar today, but it's also a word for a blood pressure complication of pregnancy that precedes the convulsive stage of eclampsia. Convulsive, meaning seizures. Seizures that can happen when it's too late, when a woman's blood pressure has gone too high and her brain is compromised. So the lightning, historically speaking, from when the word was derived, describes those seizures. I'm a writer, so I really like words, so. It was early morning, October 2nd, 2019. I wish I could tell you the time, but I only know the sun had not risen, and my husband Chris and I were lost somewhere in the time warp that opens between newborn bliss and new parent sleep deprivation. My body was still aching and sore, freshly pushed to its limit and woven back together. For the first time in hours, our 2-bedroom apartment was quiet, but our room felt too still for sleeping. Lucy laid next to me, swaddled like an adorable pink burrito. And I felt off. That eerie charge of uncertainty in the air, like right before a storm. I told Chris, something is wrong. I don't know what it is, but I don't feel right. But luckily, lightning usually rides in on the wind, on the air, like our own breath. And it was my breath that alerted me to the storm that was on its way. We called 911 to address this off feeling that I just couldn't shake. And when the 2 male paramedics arrived to check me out, all appeared normal. Blood pressure was a little high, but not scary high. but they said it was to be expected with my condition, and especially if I was anxious. The EMT actually pulled my husband aside and said to him, "She's just anxious. A lot of women go through this after birth. It's normal. It will pass." I felt like my own body was gaslighting me. It was hard to know how much of what I was feeling was a side effect from a downward spiral of hormones and pain, or the paranoia of sleep deprivation, or a heightened sense of my own mortality that I'd never really faced before they placed my baby in my arms. And suddenly, someone needed me on this side of the ground, like never before. Thoughts echoed through my head like a melody. But what will we do with her if I go to the hospital? What about the flu? She could get sick. What if she cries? Do we bring formula? It's probably nothing. I'm fine. I just had a baby. It's normal. We're fine. She's here. The hard part is over. At some point, I dozed off to the sound of this broken lullaby. But eventually, I woke up, wondering, dreaming, worrying. I tried to take a deep breath. And that's when I first felt it, the change in the wind. I inhaled and I felt popcorn in my chest. Now, you all heard me before. I'm a singer. And singers, we're aware of our breath. We know the fabric of our lungs like a hymn. I know my breath like I know my most intimate parts. I know what it feels like to breathe deeply with purpose, to be heard. This sensation of popping and hissing just behind my breastbone rattled my senses. I felt like I had a stranger's lungs inside me. Scared but determined, I sprang to my feet only to be met with more resistance of air. I gasped, finding my voice on the way to the living room where Chris crashed on the couch, and I said, "Chris, we have to go to the hospital. Something is wrong. I can't breathe." Fear etched my love's brow. His chocolate eyes swam with the melody of worries I'd only just been singing in my head. But he held my elbows and nodded, and we packed up our pink burrito girl and walked out the door. But even still, I felt selfish and scared, doubting my decision, even when I had to stop and bend over to catch my breath in the hallway of our apartment building. I panted at Chris and said, "Wait, we can't go. I'll be fine." But he just opened the door and said, "No, we're going to the ER." The decision felt easier for him. And thank God for that, because that decision saved my life. I was admitted to the ICU with an oxygen level of 80. Yeah. My blood pressure was 200 over 100 something, too high. Pulmonary edema, both lungs. I remember one of the nurses saying, "It's good you came in. You did the right thing. You must have felt really sick." And I never got to tell her, but I'll never forget those words. She made me feel so validated when I doubted I should even be there at all. I had to leave Lucy with Chris. The ICU is not a place for a newborn. And as they wheeled me upstairs, that same nurse trailed behind me with a hospital-grade breast pump. And we rounded the corner. I finally got out of Chris's view, and I started to cry for fear that I was leaving him alone with her for good. Over the next few days, they found the magical cocktail that managed my blood pressure, and I was downgraded from the ICU after about 36 hours. I spent another day or two back down in Mother Baby before I went back home for the second time. Now, the time back in the hospital feels like a blur, but I'll tell you the things that stand out the most because they tell a story all their own. I remember holding a breast pump to my chest with my hands while my husband ran in and out to deliver that precious first milk to my girl. I remember being so strung out on a magnesium drip that my tongue felt like a swollen rock in my mouth and having the worst headache of my life. I remember the nurse that admitted me who snuck up to my ICU room to give me 6 ounces of her own breast milk because she wanted to help another mom. I remember hearing someone code in the ICU room next to me and being so afraid. I remember an ICU doctor telling me that if I just lose some weight, my blood pressure wouldn't be so high. And wanting to throw my hat-shaped pea collector at his head. I remember my labor and delivery nurse coming to visit me once I was finally downgraded back to mother baby. And most of all, I remember her saying, "The after is going to take some time. You're going to have to process this eventually." And at the time, I thought, I wonder what she means by that. Then once we were home, I found out. Anxiety crippled me. Throw in struggles with breastfeeding, going back to work after 8 weeks, and then 6 months later, the onset of a global pandemic where the first symptom of serious infection is shortness of breath. And you've bought yourself a one-way ticket to therapy and a prescription for antidepressants. It took me about a year of white-knuckling anxiety and depression after my preeclampsia story to get help with the mental toll that it took. And it was the best thing I ever did. But even now, 6 years later, I have days when I struggle with the fallout of the way that experience changed me. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm here. And my daughter is happy, healthy in kindergarten. Yep. My experience really had no effect on her well-being. And I know that I would do it all again in a heartbeat to be able to still say that the same way. But if you're here today and your story doesn't end like mine, or maybe it does, but you have some other trauma as a result, trauma you're still processing, I'm here to tell you that you're going to get through it. Because this is just a storm inside a teacup, but shelter here with me, my love. Thunder like a drum, this life will beat you up, 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 up. This is just a temporary speed bump, but failure brings you freedom, and I can bring you love. Don't you sweat it, baby, it's alright. You were dancing through the lightning strikes, sleepless in the onyx night, but now the sky is open. Oh, 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 oh. Thank you.